Hey guys, today we're going to talk about colonization to the American Revolution as part one of your U.S. History Review for Georgia High School graduation test. Let's begin with the development of Virginia. Virginia will be founded as Jamestown, which was our first permanent settlement in 1607. It was established as a money-making venture by the Virginia Company, which was essentially a joint stock company that pulled their money together to found other colonies in the New World. Tobacco is going to become the first cash crop introduced by John Rolfe. Next up is a relationship with Native Americans. John Smith will trade with the Powhatan tribe to help settlers survive what was called the starving time. Another important thing to note was the House of Burgesses. The House of Burgesses will become the first legislative assembly in the New World. Bacon's Rebellion was another very important part of the development of Virginia. This was an uprising against the government of Virginia by rural farmers who wanted a more aggressive anti-Indian policy. On a final note, in 1619, you'll have the introduction of slavery to correlate with the cash crop tobacco. Next up, you have the development of the New England colonies. New England colonies are going to be founded by the Puritans and a leader named John Winthrop. They were unhappy with the Church of England, also known as the Anglican Church, and wanted to establish a utopia or perfect community in America. Unlike Virginia, who had the House of Burgesses, the New England colonies are going to have a more direct democracy or town hall meetings and development of a legislature. These town hall meetings allowed citizens to directly participate in the government by allowing them to meet together in order to discuss local problems and issues, elect their leaders, and pass laws. At the center of New England society was the Puritan Church. The Halfway Covenant is going to provide partial Puritan Church membership for the children and grandchildren of church members. Those who agreed to the covenant and agreed to the rules of the church could become members without claiming a spiritual experience. The relations with Native Americans was very different from that of Virginia. King Philip's War proved to be a very bloody conflict with Native Americans. New England colonists are going to win the war, and as a result, Indians will be removed from the New England region. Now, as I mentioned before, the Puritans were very focused on church, and they were not tolerant of other religious views. So they expelled many people. Roger Williams was from Massachusetts, and he founded Rhode Island, where he insisted on religious toleration. All right, so as a recap, Virginia was founded for profit, New England for religion, and the development of the Mid-Atlantic, well, they were founded for a number of different reasons. For example, New Amsterdam. The Dutch fur traders took the land from the Indians, the English took it from the Dutch and then renamed it New York. Pennsylvania was founded by William Penn, who was a Quaker, and Maryland was founded by Lord Baltimore, who was Catholic. Now that we've talked about the founding of the 13 colonies, let's talk about their economy. Mercantilism was the colonial economic policy in which the colonies were seen as a money-making tool for the mother country, also known as Great Britain. As the diagram shows, the colony would send raw materials to the mother country. The mother country would then turn around and send manufactured goods back to the colonies to be sold. Also part of the economy during this time was the transatlantic trade or the triangular trade. It's important for you to note this red arrow with slaves from Africa to the Americas is known as the Middle Passage. During this time, 8 to 10 million Africans will be shipped across the Atlantic Ocean to the colonies in America. Obviously, we don't stay colonies forever, so let's talk about the American Revolution, focusing on the primary causes. Number one was the French and Indian War. The French and Indian War was fought between 1756 to 1763, and it was fought between England and France over territory from the Appalachian Mountains all the way to the Mississippi River. Now, most Indians sided with the French, and that's why we call it the French and Indian War. England saw this as defending the colonists from the Indians and French. Now, the outcome, England won, but was left in a huge debt. So the solution was to tax the colonies. The Treaty of Paris, 1763, ended this war. Along with the French and Indian War, we need to talk about some other primary causes. The Proclamation of 1763, this is where Parliament limited where the colonists could settle. Then the Stamp Act taxed all printed materials, and the Intolerable Acts limited trade and self-government in the colonies. The problem is, for years, the British had mostly ignored the colonists, so these new taxes were not received happily by the colonies. The two images to the left are very important, the first being a map of the Proclamation of 1763 line, which essentially said that colonists had to stay east of the Appalachian Mountains. The second is an image of the rally cry, "No taxation without representation." This was how many of the colonists felt about the British actions of the Stamp Act and other taxes that were placed in order to pay for the French and Indian War. Now, most colonists did oppose independence and or war with England, but there were a number of colonists who did support independence. You're going to have the Sons and Daughters of Liberty. They're going to form groups to protest and oppose British policies, as well as women who would weave cloth so that they could boycott British goods. The Committees of Correspondence is another group of people who will plan boycotts of British goods and spread ideas of independence. The turning point for independence is going to be Thomas Paine's Common Sense. This was a pamphlet written in 1776 to convince the common people of the need for independence. A couple of months later, on July 4th, 1776, we signed the Declaration of Independence. This listed the complaints about King George III and Parliament and essentially gave reasons for our independence. It was written by Thomas Jefferson, and in it he wrote the ideas of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, he borrowed these ideas from John Locke, an English philosopher who had two crucial theories: social contract theory and natural rights theory. Overall, John Locke believed that if a government abused its power and did not protect the rights of the people, that the people had the responsibility to overthrow that government and establish a new one. Now that we've declared our independence, we must fight for our independence, and that means we need help from the French. Benjamin Franklin goes to France and helps forge this alliance, and in return, France sends Marquis de Lafayette, who helps train our colonial militia. George Washington is another very important leader during the American Revolution. He will serve as commander of the Continental Army and later as our first president. During the Revolution, he will become known for the crossing of the icy Delaware River, which was a surprise attack on the British, and for training his troops during the dead of winter at their Valley Forge camp. The American Revolution will come to an end after the Battle of Yorktown. This was the last major battle where Lord Cornwallis will surrender. In 1783, the Treaty of Paris will be negotiated by Ben Franklin, and here England will recognize America as its own independent nation. In Part 2 of the U.S. History Review for the Georgia High School graduation test, we'll talk about the development of our Constitution as well as the political, economic, and territorial growth of America.